All right, welcome back to College Football Addiction. The college football playoff gets kicked off on Friday night, and we cannot be more excited for it. We're going to preview, really just pick each one of these games. I do have a full-length preview over on our SEC channel if you would like to get a little more thoughts. I'm going to talk about a little bit of that, but not going to make this a super long video. Just going to pick the games, share why I think each team wins, covers, whatever. Appreciate BetUS for their support on this. We'll talk about them a little bit later. First up, Notre Dame, Indiana. This is one that I've gone back and forth with a ton. We spoke with Joe DeLeon of Rufino and Joe show about this earlier in the week. You can go check that out on the channel. But I do think Curtis Rourke is probably the better quarterback in this matchup. Not to upset the Notre Dame fans. I know Riley Leonard has played fairly well this year. I know that you've been fairly pleased with what you've gotten there. But I do like Curtis Rourke more. And I think that if Indiana is going to win this game, it is going to rest largely on his shoulders. He's had a good year. They've had a good offense. It is going to be on him. You kind of saw them have a rough stretch in that Ohio State game. Obviously, they have to avoid that. A fumble, a turnover on downs, and a punt return touchdown. Ohio State makes a 7-7 game, 21-7, and they never really looked back from there. I think a lot of people talk about Indiana's schedule as not being super impressive. When you look at their schedule versus a Notre Dame schedule, pretty similar, right? I don't think that it's insane to think that Notre Dame's schedule wasn't really much more impressive than Indiana's. I know it gets propped up a little bit because they beat Army. Again, Service Academy, tough to really call there. As much as I like Indiana's quarterback, I probably like the rest of Notre Dame's team on this one. I like Notre Dame in the trenches more. I like Jeremiah Love a lot. I like that defense for Notre Dame as well. The secondary, the front seven, all of it probably has me leaning Notre Dame a bit. I do think that the home field advantage and the weather advantage that Notre Dame would typically have is a little bit neutralized because of how close Indiana is. I think they'll have a very good contingent there. I also think that playing up there in that kind of weather, being able to practice in it, is a big deal as well. How does Marcus Freeman do in another big game? Obviously, they won that opener against A&M to start the year. That's always been the big knock. Could Notre Dame get over the big game hump? That's my big question for them. Riley Leonard has also played pretty well this year. He has to avoid that disastrous letdown type game. That's what I'm looking at on the Notre Dame end. I think Notre Dame does end up winning here. I think they end up covering too, though it wouldn't surprise me at all if Indiana is able to keep it a little bit closer due to their offense. I just think that in a grounded pound run and defense type game, Notre Dame's set up to have a little bit more success. And so I will pick them. I also think that they cover the 7.5 points based on where you get it. Hopefully you're betting with BetUS. I think I like Notre Dame to not only win, but cover this spread. I don't think they win going away. I'd be surprised if this is more than a 10-point game, a 10-point victory for Notre Dame. Penn State, SMU, the biggest question here, the team heading up from Dallas to play in what I think is the toughest home environment anyone has to play in this weekend. I think having to go to Happy Valley is a more difficult thing than Tennessee going to the Shoe. I think it's more difficult than Indiana going to Notre Dame, and I also think that it's more difficult than Clemson going out to Austin. SMU having to go up there, this will be the game where home field advantage makes the biggest difference. Is it enough of a difference for Penn State to just outright win? I don't think it's like that. I don't think this is Death Valley at night. I don't think that this is Clemson on their long run. I don't think this is Tuscaloosa. I do think it's a huge difference, though. SMU needs to start quick in this game. They cannot fall behind a team that likes to play tough defense, has a very physical front, and runs the ball extremely well with Allen and Singleton there in the backfield. If SMU starts slowly like they did against Clemson, a lot of that due to their own mistakes, I think Penn State wins this thing going away. However, if SMU and if Jennings and that offense, Smith, can get things rolling early, which I do think it's going to be tough to run the ball on Penn State, but if they can get that quick passing game going, if Rhett Lashley can be creative, that's where I think SMU can potentially excel and find some success. Just before I predict that game, I do want to give some love over to BetUS. Make sure that you're betting with them for all of these college football playoff games. Use our code YouTube150 for 150% bonus on your first deposit. You get 125% on your next two. All of that up to $2,000. Appreciate BetUS for their support. In this one, I think Penn State does come out on top, but I do like SMU to cover here. It's 8.5 points based on when you get the line, when you see this video, when you maybe go log into BetUS to bet on it. I like SMU to cover. Penn State wins. I'm taking the home team. I think the home field advantage is going to be a big deal. I think being more physical in a cold weather game is going to be a massive deal. I know I'm not breaking any news by picking two home teams up north, but I do like Penn State to win. SMU keeps it close, though. SMU loses by 4, if I have to call it tonight. SMU capable of pulling this upset, though. Don't let anything fool you. They could certainly go in there and win this game. Clemson and Texas, this is the biggest spread that we have anywhere. I've seen it anywhere from 11.5, 12. Texas' only 2 losses, of course, to the best program right now. I don't know if they're the best team or not, but the best program in college football. And Clemson, just on the skin of their teeth. I do think that pressure matters in this one. I spoke with Allie a lot about this. Again, we'll link that at the very end if you want more full thoughts. But I do think the pressure is a big deal on Texas. I also don't think the home field advantage is as big of an advantage for Texas as it is for the other teams. One of those reasons is due to weather. The other of those reasons is just due to, I don't know that Austin has the intimidation factor. Don't kill me, Texas fans, that a Penn State has, that Ohio State has, or even a Notre Dame has. I think it's closer with Notre Dame, but then with weather taken away, I think this is the home field advantage that means the least. Here's where the good news is for Texas. I don't think it matters. I think Texas is that much more talented than Clemson. Clemson, to me, is a team that when they're playing well could certainly compete with Texas, and they could certainly beat Texas. The thing that I haven't seen from Clemson is, one, I haven't seen a complete game yet against an opponent that matters. I don't care how much you beat NC State by earlier this year. I haven't seen a complete game yet. They've played well in stretches. They played well for 3 quarters against a good SMU team, but I haven't seen it for the full game. They played well for portions of the South Carolina game. They played well for the first half defensively of the Georgia game. Can they put together a full game? Can they put together a full game on the road in Austin against a team that is more talented? They'll need to do that to have a chance in this one. And until I see it from Clemson fans, I think I'm being fair by saying this. Until I see it from Clemson, it's hard for me to think that it's going to happen. Now, what's the saving grace for Clemson? Quinn Ewers hasn't been playing that well. And I do think that some of the doubts, some of the worries about how Quinn will play, how he'll throw, what they can do with him in the red zone might be Clemson's saving grace. There's a path to Clemson winning this thing, and it probably has to do with Klubnik outplaying Ewers, which if you're just giving me those 2 quarterbacks and you make everything else even, I'm probably taking Cade in this matchup. Now, Ewers plus Manning maybe creates a little bit of a different dynamic, but just Cade versus Quinn, don't kill me, Texas fans. I might take Cade's season and the way that he's played as of late over the way that Quinn has played. I think Texas's defense is going to make things very difficult on Clemson's offense. And again, until Clemson puts together a full game, I don't know that I can trust them. This spread, though, is huge. And Texas, though they've won and played well, hasn't really put teams away the way that I think they should. You think about the Vandy game, you think about their Kentucky game, I guess they won by 17. You think about their Mississippi State game, they weren't overly impressive. Texas A&M, a good team, but not a team that I'd put up maybe a tad lower than Clemson. I'd probably say that Clemson keeps this closer than the 11.5, 12-point spread. So give me Texas to win. I like Clemson to cover in this one. How motivated is Texas after that UGA loss? Do they let some of that doubt creep back in, or do they use it as a chip on their shoulder? If they use it as a chip on their shoulder, they'll probably make me wrong on this and prove that by covering the spread against Clemson. But I'll take Clemson to cover. It's a big spread. It's a lot of points in a playoff game. But give me Texas to win and move on to play Arizona State. And then lastly, we did save the best for last, Tennessee, Ohio State. This is the game of the weekend to me. Now, I'll probably be wrong, and this will be a blowout one way or the other, and, Indiana, Notre Dame, or Penn State, SMU will be the game of the weekend. But this is the game of the weekend to me. A 7-point line right now, Ohio State a favorite. And the pressure on Ohio State and Ryan Day right now has to be absolutely absurd. And what I wonder, I've asked both Sports Talk Jay, I asked Zach Smith, former Ohio State wide receiver coach. I've asked a lot of people. We talked about it last night even with Allie on the SEC show that I'll link at the end here. Has that pressure been a weight on them for the last 3 weeks? Or has that pressure, hearing all that about Ryan Day, hearing all this about Ohio State not winning the game, hearing everything about Ohio State maybe squandering an opportunity with one of the highest paid rosters in college football, has that been a pressure or a weight on them, or has that galvanized the team? Are they in a better spot right now because they've brought all that in and said, we're going to show you what's going on? Because this game's going to go one of two ways. Ohio State's going to win this thing going away because they absolutely play with their hair on fire and they go out and lay it all on the line. Great defensive effort. Will Howard plays well. That's the first way. Or they're going to lose a close game because that pressure is going to get to them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't see Tennessee blowing this team out. And honestly, I don't see Ohio State winning a super close one. Now, my pick here in a minute, because of betting purposes, it might confuse you a little bit, but that's kind of the way I see this playing out. Tennessee on the road, built to compete with Ohio State. There is absolutely no doubt about it. A running team, a team that is very solid defensively. I don't know that they can match up with the, Ohio State's wide receivers, though I don't think anyone in the country can. But because of the pressure I think they can get on Howard, I think they'll match up very, very well defensively. Tennessee's front is great. How does Nico play in this game? Obviously, I think he's playing better as the season progresses. He's obviously got all 12 games under his belt. I think he's very important. Dylan Sampson is certainly going to get his in this game. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. He is the best running back in the SEC, in my opinion. And I think that Tennessee is built to go in and win a game like this. All that said, I'm not 100% sold on Tennessee just yet. I know we have a lot of Tennessee fans that watch the channel, a lot of Tennessee fans that tune in. I think Ohio State wins this by exactly the spread. I think they win by a touchdown. I think it's a game that Tennessee's in. I think Ohio State does just enough in this game to win it by the spread. If I had to bet it, I'd probably take Tennessee to cover just because I think they have such a great chance to not only win, but pull the upset. So maybe sprinkle a little bit on the Tennessee money line if that's the way you want to do it. But I think Ohio State wins by 7-8 points. I think this line is set incredibly well. If it drops down to like Ohio State minus 6.5, I would jump all over it. I like Ohio State by exactly the spread. I like them by a touchdown in this game. Give me 31-24. I do think there's a little bit more scoring than people are expecting in this one. 31-24, Ohio State wins. That is exactly the spread. So if the spread goes one way or the other, bet that side of it. You can do all of that at BetUS. We appreciate their support in this video. Comment below and tell me the 4 teams you think are covering the spread this weekend. I can tell by who's covering the spread, who's win. Let me know who's covering the spread and who wins. We appreciate BetUS for their support. Did I upset? I thought this was pretty fair. I don't think there's anything that would upset people. But if you have any comments or complaints, keep those to yourself. We're doing positivity only with how close we are to Christmas. And if you want to see my full thoughts, where I went into this for about an hour with Allie Peak of Peek Inside Gators Football, I went live with her last night on a Peek Inside SEC Football. You can click the video on the screen right now to watch that and check it out.